guys, I'm Aaron Edgar, and this is part 4 of Andrew Wasson's How to Play Over a Typical Jazz Tune series. So when Andrew asked me to do this, I had to really think to myself of how do I want to approach making this video, because I don't want to just rehash everything that's already been said about jazz playing. I'm sure there's hundreds and hundreds of videos about how to play the chord, how to play over the form, how to set up your shots, and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, I want to talk about the more subtle things to do with this. I want to talk about the minute aspects of your groove and your feel within your swing pulse and how to develop your swing pulse. Not only that, we're also going to talk a little bit about dynamics and some interesting ways that you can, mess with your cymbals and stuff to help get a little bit more of a personalized sound. So even when you're just playing your quarter note pulse on the ride and hi-hats, it should have a forward momentum. It should chug along. You should feel like it's just got a little bit of magnetism into each note. It should just be pulling you into the next one. And this can be achieved by playing just one extra note. There's a ton of different places that we can play our eighth notes around the quarter note. Now I know in swing we talk about swung eighth notes, which is going to be the last note of the triplet. But it doesn't just stop there. And generally playing exactly on the last note of the triplet, like a machine or exactly within the subdivision, doesn't necessarily feel very good, as much as it would be technically correct. Now what we want is pretty much anything on either side of that note in a subtle way feels very cool. And definitely helps with how the song feels. See, my favorite thing about that is pretty much all the spaces between, let's say, straight, like here's your eighth note pulse, here's your swung eighth note pulse, and here's beyond your swung eighth note pulse. They can all feel very cool as long as you're consistent with it. You don't want to just be randomly putting stuff, say, here and here and here because you don't have control over it. If you can really hone in and say, I want my notes to be here, it can be a very convincing and very, very cool feeling groove that you come up with. One of the other things that I'd like to talk about is the dynamics. A lot of guys that I see, a lot of my students, a lot of people that come to me and they're wanting to learn about jazz kind of stuff, they just don't really have a handle on what's quiet enough for most situations. A lot of jazz gigs are done at sort of the restaurant level where it's very quiet. Honestly, if people can't talk over what you guys are playing, you're too loud and you're going to get complaints. You're probably going to get fired and not hired back again. What we're looking for is just a light comping underneath, like very ghost notes on the snare drum, like feathered bass drum kind of idea, and it has to complement the tune. Like I was saying early on, I don't want to get super into this. There's tons of resources on that already, but the one thing that I need to say is just make sure you're not comping for the sake of comping or because you're bored of just playing time. It has to complement the tune. Otherwise, essentially, you're just screwing around, and that's really not helping anything. Music, especially of this nature, is supposed to be a conversation. You interact with each other. You don't just be like, hey, look at me all the time. It's not good. That's a great way to, never get hired again or possibly even get fired off your gig. So let's talk a little bit now about different ways you can mess with your cymbals to get a little bit more of a personalized sound out of them. Okay, so there are a number of things that I do with my cymbals on a very regular basis. In fact, almost all the time that I modify their sound depending on my situation or even the room. Like there are certain gigs where I'd be playing a set of cymbals in a certain style, but we get into another room and it's just a little too much. So you want to mess with it and make it a little more appropriate for where you are. The first thing that I'd like to show you is MoonGel. Now, I'm going to take the camera with me over to the kit so you can see closer as to how this works. A lot of people don't realize that you can use MoonGel on cymbals, and it's fantastic. They don't have to just be for drums. And the same thing with the drums is where you put them changes how they affect the sound. Another cool thing you can do that I haven't really seen anybody else doing, I'm not saying that I'm, an innovator of this idea, but, I thought of it myself. It's, I took a carpet sample and I cut it essentially as a big felt. Cut a little hole inside and replace your bottom felt to your cymbal with it. Now this is for sort of more extreme dampening, but sometimes that's the sound that's necessary. So you can even use crash cymbals as ride cymbals this way because it allows you to really lay into your cymbal without the stick definition dying when you're really beating on it. So you can give it a lot of dynamics and your stick definition will still come through clearly. Now also, you can combine any of these ideas together to make, your own personalized version of a cymbal sound depending on what you're doing. Now these also work great with hi-hats. In fact, with the Hammer Axe Hell hats that are unbelievably loud, almost every situation that I do, I have a cut up piece of t-shirt that I use in between the hi-hats, and I put 2 full pieces of MoonGel on top. And I mean, I can even use them on quiet gigs in this sort of situation, and they still have that really just trashy, cool sound. It's fantastic cymbals, and I wouldn't be able to use them on many gigs just because they're so loud without being able to dampen them this kind of way. So these are just some thoughts on different ways that you can personalize your own cymbals, like get unique sounds out of them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. These were just some ideas that scratch the surface of how to play along with a jazz tune. But again, I wanted to pick stuff that was a little less talked about than your typical, here's how you read a chart, here's how you go over the form. And yeah, so I hope these were some great ideas for you guys to help personalize your sound on the kit and play a little bit more appropriately for the music. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye.